Film remakes seem to be increasingly common right now, but they don't feel very creative. Film remakes used to take something that was really old or from another country and update it for a modern audience. I think remaking films this way, keeping the spirit of the original while giving it a modern twist, can be a great way to enjoy stories that have become stuck in the past, but I also realize that sometimes films can remake older works in a way that fails to live up to the original. With that being said, I want to look at some of the more prominent film remakes to see where they went right and where they went wrong. The original King Kong released in 1933 and is a fairly simple monster movie that follows a film producer traveling to a mysterious island to shoot a film only to meet the gorilla Kong, who he captures to show off in New York before Kong escapes and roams New York. Peter Jackson's 2005 remake takes the core of the original and adds depth to the characters to make the central plot more enjoyable. The lack of characterization in the original was my main problem. It felt like characters were only present so that certain events could happen, rather than the characters feeling like they had motivations, so this change helped the remake in my eyes. On the other hand, one of my favorite elements of the original, the special effects, are greatly improved in the remake, making full use of over 70 years of technology. I was blown away by the stop-motion fights between Kong and other creatures in the original, but the remake takes these fights and turns them up to 11. The Kong fights in the remake have so much energy, and it's super fun to watch Kong throw these creatures around. The advancement of special effects also allows for more emotional moments with Kong. In the original film, actors weren't able to really interact physically with Kong, and they were filmed separately. Although the remake uses a digital Kong, Andy Serkis was on set when filming as a Kong reference, and then provided the motion capture for the digital model of Kong, making the character himself feel more human and helping the other actors engage with Kong in a more human way. In my opinion, King Kong succeeds as a remake because it takes a film that's already good and changes some elements in order to make the story more accessible to modern film audiences. Rather than trying to fix a bad movie, it simply applies a new coat of paint for audiences that might not otherwise appreciate the older stylings of the original film. The 2014 remake of 1987's RoboCop fails as a remake because it takes a complex film with a great visual style and shallows the themes while also failing to create an interesting visual identity. Thematically, the original explores the ideas and fears of replacing police officers with robots controlled by corporations, touching on the potential corruption and ineptitude that comes along with outsourcing a public good to a private company. The 2014 remake handles this idea differently, with the entire world having fully robotic police forces except for the United States, with the plan being to put a cyborg police officer on duty to change public opinion. I feel like this is both a weaker theme than the original, and I feel that the remake's handling of theme isn't as strong. There is some compelling writing at the start concerning Alex Murphy trying to cope with his attempted assassination and come to terms with his new identity as RoboCop, and it feels similar to Johnny Got His Gun, but the film decides to pivot away from this character drama angle and move to generic action. This pivot sums up my main issue with the writing of the reboot compared to the original. It has various ideas that could be good, but it can't properly manage them into a cohesive idea. The previously mentioned action is also a weak point for the remake compared to the original. The action scenes in the original had a lot of weight to them, from the way RoboCop moved to the way his weapons tore people apart. Original RoboCop was very clearly a tank and hit just as hard. In the remake, RoboCop is almost like a ninja but not very cool. His movement is really quick and fluid, which could possibly be used for interesting set pieces, but all of new RoboCop's weapons just fire really quickly and don't seem to have much of an effect when someone is hit. This is especially noticeable in the fight with the Ed robots. RoboCop fires consistently at the robots and it doesn't have an immediate effect, where in the original film, he shoots the Ed robot once with a Cobra rifle and there's very clear damage. Overall, the RoboCop remake isn't a bad movie, but it does nothing to exceed or modernize the original film. It feels like someone wanted to make the original as a pure action film, but it fails at that aspect. Brian De Palma's 1983 remake of the 1932 film Scarface is an uncertain remake because it is a good film that accomplishes what it sets out to do, but it is also a completely different film from the original. Rather than just improving the original film for a modern audience like King Kong, it uses the original film as a springboard to make something unique. The films do share scenes and general ideas, but the character arcs and themes between the two films are completely different. Both films focus on gangsters who reach the top of the crime world and lose it all, but they go about it in completely different ways. The original 1932 Scarface focuses on Tony pursuing progressively bigger crime moves, with his rising greed mirroring his rising control over the crime world. This film feels to be focused on the idea of greed and control, tying into the billboard at the end of the film, "The world is yours." The 1983 remake, on the other hand, follows Tony Montana as he makes various moves to expand his drug empire, before losing it because he gets addicted to cocaine and spends most of his time decorating his mansion rather than protecting his empire. The remake seems to be more focused on themes of excess and addiction, with it tying less into "the world is yours" and more into the advice Tony receives from Frank Lopez: "Don't get high on your own supply." While both films are good and the 1983 remake certainly updates the original for a modern audience, they're so different in the ideas they cover that it's hard to directly say if Scarface is a successful remake. Remaking a film can be a difficult task, but it seems like they succeed when they take a story that doesn't fully connect with audiences in a modern context and give the project to a strong director that is interested in making great films. So hopefully Spike Lee's Highest to Lowest, a remake of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low, can correct this trend. There are a number of good film remakes or reinterpretations that I didn't mention, so be sure to comment your favorite and subscribe for weekly film breakdowns.